Hey there, welcome to saas.unbound, brought to you by saas.group. I'm your host, Anna Nadeina, and this is the show where we chat with inspiring founders and experts to get an inside scoop on how they made their business a success. And today with me is Ovi Negrean, co-founder of SocialBee, a social media management tool that empowers its users to share content across multiple social networks from one place. They're fully remote, frequently ship awesome new features, and I'm super excited to see how they grow and what they're up to. So, welcome to the podcast, Ovi.
Thanks, Anna. It's really great being here.
Okay, it's awesome. Well, and I have to admit, so I am the customer of SocialBee and I love it. So, first thing that it does for me is that I'm in Turkey, and maybe that's the thing that is the problem somehow with Twitter. I don't know, but it doesn't work for me mostly, like maybe 20% of the time. And SocialBee gives me an opportunity to post there still. I don't engage there, but I post. And oh, by the way, you have this new feature, but I'll ask about it later. And the second coolest thing that SocialBee does for me is that, for example, we're doing this episode, right? And tomorrow I'll go and edit it and upload it on YouTube, and I will have like a certain mindset about it, right? And I will be in a certain mood about the episode and what you're talking about, and I can right away like capture that and make it into a post, and no matter when it's going to be live, I can still post it with the same mindset and the same mood going on. So it's really cool. So thank you for a great tool.
Yeah, thank you for using it. I did not know that you're also a Social Bee user, but I'm really happy to
Yep.
hear that.
Yes. Okay, so that wasn't that wasn't my pitch before the podcast. Okay, well, it's cool to have you here. Can we maybe start with your background?
Yeah, so originally I'm a developer by background, but I haven't written a line of code in many years now. I still know enough to know what the technical parts are about, and enough to make my co-founder and CTO a bit angry sometimes, because I also try to give like some technical suggestions, and then he keeps reminding me that I haven't written a line of code in many years and things have changed since then, which is a fair point. But then I went on to be a team lead, and I then also started a software company in Romania for a Belgian software company, so their Romanian branch. But I always had this nagging feeling of wanting to start something on my own. And at one point, I managed to save enough money from my corporate jobs to be able to give entrepreneurship a real try, because throughout the years I always had like side gigs or side ideas that I was playing with, but they never took off, probably because also they were side gigs, and also honestly probably because I was not enough, or I did not learn enough of the things that I had to know to turn those into a successful business. But eventually we did, together with my co-founder, we said, okay, let's give this a real try, and we started working full time on what was the previous idea before SocialBee, actually.
Okay. All right. So that's a good point. So you're, as far as I remember, the executive bee of the company,
Exactly.
right?
We don't like to take ourselves too seriously, so yes, I'm the chief executive bee of SocialBee.
Okay. I remember talking with David Hansen about this, and at the early stage of Basecamp, they also had like this fun titles like General Ninja President or something. And at some point, then they decided that maybe they have to go back to the normal titles, because socially it's just better received. So how do you feel about it? Do you have the normal titles as well?
We do, and we haven't. We probably are somewhere in between now, where we have both. for me, it's a bit sad that you need to have these formal titles and that you cannot be a bit more playful in this business world. But I can also understand that some people prefer to put you like in a clear bucket that they know and understand. And of course, CEO is better known than chief executive be. So we basically try to use both depending on the context.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like you're having fun with the business, and I want to jump right into your customer communication because, of course, I crawled around the internet looking for what people say, and is there any dirt? But there is none. Like on G2, you have like this staggering 4 and 8 rate, right? And people are super excited to talk about you. They share videos and reviews and whatnot. And as far as I saw on the website, you are very active in communication, right? You have all kinds of videos and tutorials and webinars and all that. So what part does customer communication play in the growth of Social Bee?
So we've always been very customer centric, and we try to make sure that we give the best experience to our customers and that we make good for them. We try to also have like a good quality to price ratio where probably we're underpriced at this moment. And we always try to go above and beyond with supporting our customers. For example, we'll still do one-on-one calls with leads, with people who are in trial, with customers, even with people that have been with us for a very long period of time, or people who are just recently checking us out, and we can jump on multiple calls if needed. So we really have this built into our culture that we do want to help. And I guess this then is seen and felt by our customers, and they reward us with these positive reviews. Um, of course, there's always room for improvement, and also our app sometimes some areas need improvement, and we like to get the feedback from our customers because of that, and to know what we should focus on and what we should improve. Some things we're working on already, some things are on our roadmap, and but it's always striving to be better. Be better is one of our values, but to be better for our customers as well.
Okay. I did have one lag when I was posting, but it turned out, and I was posting on LinkedIn, but it turned out, I went on LinkedIn and I was like, okay, maybe I'll just post there right away because I wanted to post right away. And it turned out that it's the same, well, not a problem, but like a bit of a twitch with that thing on LinkedIn itself. So I probably shouldn't complain to you, but I will maybe after after the podcast.
Please do. Even now, all of the emails that we send out to our tens of thousands of people that we have in our email list come from my personal email address. And it really is my personal email address. It's the same one that we used to communicate and so on. And a lot of people do reply, and we always encourage them to reply, because this way I can also keep my hand on the pulse of what's happening and how our customers are perceiving us. But also, customers can know that they can escalate when things don't go how they expected. They can reach out to me, or they can reach out to our whole team if they have any problems, and we always listen. Sometimes we don't agree. Maybe some people have a very specific need, a very specific feature that they would like, or maybe sometimes that feature we think is maybe a bit on the shady side, and we don't want to do that, of course, because we depend on the APIs of all of the social networks. So we try to be good guardians of that. But we always listen, and whenever we hear something coming from multiple sources, then we really pay attention, and we try to make that a priority as well.
Oh, that's perfect. People love to get right away to the person that makes the decision. It just makes it so much more trustworthy and serious for them, and I think it opens a lot of doors. And I remember how I decided to reply an email from the founder of ADP List, one of my favorite mentorship platforms, and then he replied, and I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can totally see what you're doing there. Okay, perfect. So, and I'm kind of jumping from one thing to another, but it's something that I've seen when I started using Social Bee, and you've introduced AI, um, post generation AI tool, right? And now, I think just a couple of weeks ago, right, you've also introduced this engage module. So, is it just getting back to the trends that are going on right now, or was it also coming from the customer communication?
It's a bit of both. So the two examples that you gave are two quite different and distinct cases. So I will talk about each of them individually. The Engage module is basically a unified social inbox type of functionality. This has been our most requested functionality since almost since we started, but we didn't have enough resources to really build it properly, because that's a product in its own, and we are actually treating it as a product in its own. And we actually had a couple of false starts in building this product before, but it was difficult both on a technical level, because you really need to synchronize a lot of data with all of the network providers, which work in different ways and so on. So there's a bit of a technical challenge there as well. And then we also didn't get the UX right the first time around. So we had the UX, we built it, we started implemented it, and then something didn't feel right, and we went back to the drawing board. But now we started maybe some 1 year ago to have a sub team that was dedicated specifically on the Engage module. And it was quite a big effort on our end, but we managed to release the beta version. And now we have more networks that we keep adding on a regular basis, and more functionality. Plus, we iron out all of the bugs that we are finding through the beta program. And then once everything will be ready, it will be probably a sub product on its own. So this has been long in the making. We really thought a lot about it and so on. On the AI part, it was a bit opportunistic, I would say, because after GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT, two things happened. One, the tools got much better. So, as anybody who used ChatGPT for the first time, it's basically like magic. And once you see that, you really want that in your app. And we saw that it's something that we can implement through OpenAI's API. We looked at different APIs, but we thought it's better to go with them because they felt like they will be the leader in the space, or definitely one of the top players, which for sure they are. But we also tried to make it as easy and as usable as possible, because everything about AI starts with the prompt. So if you don't have good prompts, you won't have good results. So what we actually did is that we hand curated and created a list of over 1,000 prompts that are specifically for social media. We split them into, I think, like some 20 categories or something like that. And we added them to a UI where you can just also hit a shuffle button and we give you a random prompt, and maybe you can use that one. Or if you know specifically what type of content you want to generate, you go in that specific category and pick one of the prompts. Or you can even save your favorite prompts or create your own prompts and save those as well for easy use for a future version. These are some updates that we just released a few days ago. And also a few days ago, we implemented the possibility to generate images through prompts. Now, the image generation part of OpenAI is not the best out there. There are some others that are better. So sometimes the results are quite funny. But we are still banking on the fact that OpenAI, and from also what we're hearing, they have something in the works which will make the image generation part as good as the text generation part. And by that time, we will just have it and it will work for all of our customers. So the AI part was more, okay, this is very important. It's taking the world by storm. Let's disregard whatever we had on our roadmap and just focus on this. While the Engage is something that we've been consistently working for over 1 year now.
Okay. All right. That's super exciting. Now, I want to stop this and just go and try. but, but yeah, super cool. Okay. So, the Engage module was something that the customers wanted. So do you think this is like the biggest feature that was kind of demand generated, or was there something else as crucial?
I think this was the biggest feature that was generated by a subset of our customers. So larger companies and agencies, that's the type of customer that really needs this. If you're a solopreneur or if you're a smaller company, usually you would want to have the problem of too many mentions and too many comments, but that's lots of time not the case. But for the agency crowd, we lacked this, and our product was not complete until we had this. So this is why this was quite important. Before this, we also worked on our analytics module, which we had some analytics, but they weren't good enough in the first years. But some 2 or 3 years ago, we really revamped them, and made them. They have all of the data that they need. They look good, and of course, there's still room for improvement, and we have some of that improvement on our roadmap. But it's quite a powerful module. So I would say this was definitely the most requested feature for agencies. And then we have all sorts of features, and our roadmap is also public. We have a public Trello roadmap where people can upvote, comment, suggest things, and so on. And it's always hard to prioritize, because usually you tend to listen to the loudest voice, while the loudest voice is not necessarily the voice that's shared by the most of your customers. And then it also really depends on the priorities that you have, on how much it takes in time or money or resources to build that functionality. So for example, with all of the things, because you mentioned Twitter, with all of the things that are happening with Twitter now, a lot of people are talking about Mastodon, and we keep an eye out on Mastodon, but the volume of people talking about Mastodon is not reflected in the number of customers or users Mastodon has. So that's why we keep looking out to see if it will really pick up. But so far, because we didn't see it pick up, and we do have a few vocal voices who tell us that they want it and they need it, but we didn't see it in the general data that it is such a big need. So because of that, we are keeping an eye out, but we haven't started working on it. Now, who knows? Priorities can change, and it could become something big, and then we will just drop everything that we're doing to implement it. But for now, we always try to strive to listen to the people, but not only to the loudest ones, but also to see how we can positively affect as many of our customers as possible.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the way you build in public, but I also wanted to ask, what if there was a feature that was really really requested by the customers or the users, and then it turned out to be not a success, and you had to retrieve it.
I'm trying to see if something comes to mind right now. We do have some functionality that we started with from day one, where it's more about finding the right audience on Twitter specifically, where we still have a few people that are using it intensely, but social media has changed and it's not that used anymore. So we actually also decided to retire that functionality. And how we did it at first is by just doing like a soft, what would be the reverse of a soft launch, like a soft retire, where we just removed that menu item from the menu, and we wanted to see how many people will complain about that. And we just got a handful of people, not even that maybe. So it was something that we spent a lot of time building in the early days, but it had no more relevance in today's social media term. So this is something that we should be doing more often, to be honest, to retire old functionality. But this was one case where we did, and it worked okay.
Okay. And by the way, how affected are you by the changes in Twitter API?
Let me get back to you on that in a few months. Normally, again, we've been following this space extremely closely. We built all sorts of systems in place to make sure that we are not affected. Currently, we think that our customers will not be affected by this. We will be slightly affected. We will incur some cost, but hopefully, if all goes as we planned, customers will not be affected, and we have all sorts of backup plans that we built throughout this. And this is something that we've learned throughout times. Each time there's a problem, it's just an opportunity to come out stronger at the other side. Also, coming back to Twitter, I still remember, I think we were in year one or something like that, where we had some accounts that were using social B in a bit of a shady way, and we didn't have any fail safes in place to not allow them to do that. So, and Twitter at one point cut our API access. And I thought, like, that's it, we're dead, and we'll go back and find a new job, and it's the end of it. But we managed to pull through. We managed to get our access back. We managed to build better systems to make sure that we don't have that problem anymore. And this type of thing happened a few times throughout our existence. So right now, I just feel like, okay, it's another Tuesday. Let's see how we can overcome this challenge. And knock on wood, so far, we managed to overcome all of the challenges. And usually we came out stronger at the other end for them.
Okay. The reason I asked is because, well, there are a lot of brands that are really affected by the changes. And what I've heard is there is a new European regulation called DMA, if I'm not mistaken, which is supposed to change that and give back all the access. But yeah, I can probably give you some details after the episode. So back to you, and I wanted to ask about the additional services that you offer. Right, you've got concierge service, and funnily enough, I've just talked about like additional services to a product with another founder, right? And we were trying to think about the way to properly price it, right? Should the product be really cheap, but then you get access to all this talent that can, for example, write articles or posts for you, or on the other hand, you just create this general price for, and then you have full access to everything, great product and the talent. So why did you introduce this service in the first place, and how are you pricing it?
The short answer is by necessity. We had to introduce it because we started Social Bee with the idea to just have like a classical SaaS. But something unfortunate actually happened. My co-founder, he went into a surgery which didn't turn out well, and he had to be in bed for a few months actually, and he actually had to learn to walk again, which was quite challenging for him, but he overcame that as well. But at that point, we had enough code to have something that can be used if we added a bit of a service on top of it. So because of that, we just added the service on top of it, and that's how we were able to find the first customers. And it was a blessing in disguise having this additional business line, because it's so hard to create any decent MRR by having a $10 or $20 per month product. You really need a ton of those users. And as a bootstrapped startup, we had our savings, but there weren't a lot of savings. So we had to like really grow the MRR. But with the services, you can definitely charge a much bigger amount for that. But even with that in mind, we always knew that, okay, we have these services, but they're productized. We are not an agency. We don't do all of the things that you want. But if you are okay with the specific things that we do, then that will come at a good price, at a fair price. We have procedures for that in place. We have trainings and systems to find people to deliver those services and so on. And basically, this is also what helped us really survive in the first years, where the MRR from the services was 90+% when we started. And then, of course, it shifted, and now the tool is what brings in more MRR. How we think about it is they're both independent, but they are made stronger together. So basically, also on your question about the pricing, it really depends. I would have to know a bit more about that specific business. But in our case, we have a big majority of our customers that are just using the tools, and then sometimes maybe for a few months, or maybe for a longer period, they take one or more of our services, depending on their needs and depending on their budgets as well. But we are even more so now really trying to think about them as two different businesses, two separate businesses. And we still want to see synergies between them, but they should both live on their own and be able to strive on their own.
Okay. And then back to product, what was the most difficult feature to build and maintain apart from the Engage module?
There's a saying in Alice in Wonderland that you need to run as far as you can to just stay in the same spot. And if you want to move forward, you need to run twice as fast, which basically describes what it means to have to implement on top of the APIs of all of these social networks. Because there's always change in those APIs. There always, especially after the Cambridge Analytica fiasco that happened some years ago. Again, we had some problems with APIs, and the whole industry had that for a few weeks until things got sorted out. But there's always changes that you need to do just to have the same functionality that you had already. So I wouldn't say that that's hard, but it's something that we always have to have time budgeted for in our roadmap, and it's something that our customers don't really get to like benefit from. I mean, they need that. It's a must for us to be on the latest APIs. But for them, it worked before, it worked now. They wouldn't understand why we spend maybe a few months on that when nothing changed from their point of view. But it's something that's, of course, crucial to what we do. And we always have to stay in line both with the latest APIs and with the latest security and risk assessments and calls with the networks and so on to stay compliant.
Okay, I wonder if there is a possibility to somehow automate this part of business, because there are a lot of companies that are built with a lot of APIs and different kinds of integrations. So, is there a way to just automate the changes and the upgrades?
I think there is, but if you really want to have full control over this side of your business, which is core to our business, I think you have to do it yourself.
Okay. All right. And what's so far for you the biggest business expense? What has been the most, again, expensive to build or maybe expensive to maintain, including HR?
I mean, for sure, most of our expense go towards our team. But when you asked about that, there was one payment which came to mind. For many years, we were socialbee.io because as a scrappy startup, you just buy the free domain that's available. And we liked the name socialbee, and the socialbee.io domain was available. But late last year, we bought socialbee.com, which as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, it was strange to give the price of a small car for a domain, but we wanted to basically show that okay, we've also been through this for many years. We've also grown a lot, and we were able to get the .com domain, and we moved over to that domain a few months ago. Of course, this was a one-off thing, but on a monthly basis, biggest expenses are definitely the team. We have a lot of affiliates, so there's a lot of money going towards the affiliates as well. And then all sorts of smaller expenses like the AWS bill, which is also quite big, and all sorts of tools that we're using left and right.
Right. What do you think about this recent trend of moving, or maybe it's not a trend yet, but people are talking about it more and more, moving off the cloud and buying your own hardware? Are you thinking about it, or it's not really what you're looking at?
I think that only makes sense once you hit quite a big scale where you can have teams that are dedicated just for that, and you as the main business don't have to worry about that, but you outsource that to like a sub team that knows what they're doing, have the right budget to do it, and so on. In our case, it is a hefty bill, but we we don't have to worry about infrastructure. We don't have to worry about AWS going down, which surprisingly it did happen like a few times, but it's so rare that and when it happens, people know that it's not just social media that's down, it's like the whole half of the internet is down. So that's not our problem.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's talk about your team a little bit. Right. You are fully remote, but you went fully remote, well, when the COVID hit, right? So was it mostly because of the COVID? Because that was obviously what you had to do, or you've built up to it, and it was more of a conscious decision, just a bit sped up.
It was mostly because of COVID, but we had everything in place already to go remote from one day to the other. And this happened because even though, especially in the first years, everybody in the team was in the same one office, usually I was the odd remote CEO, traveling around the world and working from wherever I was at that point because of mostly personal reasons. But because of that, we always had like a remote type of a culture where even though you would go in an office and you would see a lot of people in the office, it was silent except for from time to time a burst of laugh because somebody shared something on the random Slack channel, and that was funny. So also because we had the services component that we wanted to productize from the beginning, we had processes and procedures for all of the things. We had everything, even though most of the team, especially starting early on, is from Romania and are in Romania. All of our documentation, everything was in English. So we always had an eye towards being able to work remotely, to work with people from all around the world and so on. So when COVID hit, we were among the first companies in our city because again, we were like following it closely. And at first, nobody knew a lot. There was like, it seemed that it's close to being the end of the world. So we wanted to make sure that our employees are safe and that we also do our part for society. We sent everybody home. And then after COVID started to not be a problem anymore, we asked our colleagues if they want to join come back to an office. Many of them said yes. We did get a rent again, but most of them don't want to come to an office actually. So we use that office from time to time to do events or to meet with the people that are in our city. But since COVID, we also started hiring wherever. We didn't care about location anymore. We did have before that a few people that were not in the same city with the rest of the team, but after COVID, that was definitely not an issue anymore. So now we are a remote company that also has an office where people sometimes go to.
Okay. Do you have like a secret to building a healthy company culture when all your employees are working remotely?
I think we had the benefit of starting in person, and then that helped us build our culture, that helped us build trust between ourselves and so on. And then when we went remote, it was much easier. But what we did in the last since COVID was not a big problem anymore. Basically, we're doing twice per year retreats where we get everybody together. Those are the only like mandatory meetings throughout the year. And it's so funny to see people for the first time that you've only seen on a screen or a Zoom. And it's very powerful because you really get to know the people and you get to see, oh, when he says that or when she says that, it's actually not a bad comment. It's just like they're more snarky, or they like to joke that way, or you really get to understand the person behind the screen, which really builds a lot of trust. So this is something that we will continue to do at least twice per year. We have our upcoming retreat in June, so we're looking forward to that as well. But I think having fully remote, you really need to uh, pay attention to the culture that you're building and to do it in a way where you're conscious about it and you build. You use tools maybe, but you build space to really let that culture develop and to guide it also to a culture that you would want to be a part of.
Okay. And are you guys completely synchronous, or there are still, some meetings? Like you said, the only two are mandatory, but are there other meetings like maybe within the marketing team or sales or engineers?
We are trying to move to a more asynchronous way of working. Currently, we do have a few meetings, usually around like more either leadership meetings or team meetings that happen on even stand-up meetings that we do in some sub teams. But we try as much as possible to not have to be all at the same time in front of the computer. And basically, our general rule for our colleagues is do your work and make sure that you don't create problems for your colleagues because of your time differences and so on. So as long as that happens and there's common understanding, we don't care when you work or where you work from.
Cool. Okay. Well, that makes sense. And there is a random Slack channel, which makes it a lot funnier to work.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of sending random memes. Sorry about that.
That's actually one of the main things I regret from the in-person days, because during the in-person days we also had like a lot of pictures from the office which were turned into memes, and it's really funny to see, like, I know, pictures from celebrations or just like a random meeting in the office, and when somebody makes a face and then somebody turns that into a meme, and we miss that. And we don't have that anymore. We still have some other memes, but they're not as personal as they used to be.
Right. Oh, that's super cool. All right. Share them. I will, post them as comments. All right. And just a couple of more questions. So, the one that I'm always getting is, what's so far the biggest win and the biggest failure for you as the founder, or maybe for a company?
I think for 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 me personally, but for the company as well, the biggest win is once we passed a certain threshold where I felt like, okay, it's by now it's unlikely for us to die. Because in the first days as a bootstrapped startup, we always like were struggling to to get the right talent on board because we were not able to pay enough money. We didn't have, like, the team was not robust enough or big enough for us to build everything that we wanted to build or to move as fast as we wanted to. And there's always room, like even now I would want us to be maybe slightly bigger so we can move even faster, but we're now in a good place where something really bad would have to happen for us to die as a startup. So we're in a good position now. And for me, even though it wasn't like a one-off specific moment, it was like a gradual, releasing of the stress somehow, both on me personally, but also on the business, which really for me was a big win. On the losses side, I mentioned like a few episodes where we had issues with APIs. Also, I remember like first time when somebody quit, I felt like I was personally betrayed, and it was the end of the world to me. But since then, we really just started to recognize that all of these ups and downs are just part of the entrepreneurship roller coaster, and we've managed to survive all of the bad moments so far. So we're hoping that we will continue to grow and to thrive. So there isn't any like one big failure that would stand out.
Okay, and that's probably a very good sign. All right, and my last question would be, you're a SaaS company and you're so active on social media. You probably know the industry very very well. So, what would be the company that you're really, and probably the founder too, that you're really looking up to and would maybe want to work with or invest in?
Until you said invest in, or because I know that's not a possibility, I was thinking of Dan Martel from the SaaS Academy. They are basically a very valuable resource for a SaaS provider like us, and I learned a lot through just following him on social media and through his videos and through his content. And it's, I think, a very clear proof that even in the B2B space, if you put out a lot of value without like worrying about putting out too much value, and without worrying that, I know, somebody will steal your idea or steal your blueprints or whatever, you can build a very big business by just providing a lot of value, because you will be able to capture part of that value for yourself as well.
Right. Oh, and that reminds me, I actually have a friend. Sorry, I have a question from a colleague that she really, really wanted me to ask, and that's something that you just mentioned. So, as a new company, when you were just entering the business, weren't you afraid? Like there are so many stories when, for example, Facebook saw somebody building this small company with like this specific feature, and they just took it and then built it, and everyone thought it's theirs. Weren't you afraid of something like that happening to Social B? And how did you deal with that fear if it was in place?
Well, in our space, we have quite a lot of competitors, and it's more about just like with cars. Like the number one goal of a car is to take you from point A to point B. But there are so many brands of cars because people have different preferences and different needs. So we managed to find our own niche where we focus a lot on saving time, and we always try to strive through to improve our tools and our support and marketing and so on. And we offer this at a fair price, at a good price. And we knew that it's also not a winner takes all type of market, where in social media like the Facebooks of the world and so on, it's like, I don't know, five players only playing at the top, and there's a big difference between player number one and player number two and three, and so on. um, so we knew that in this B2B space, it's not so much as a winner take all market, and it's not a problem if we have some competition. Competition is good. Now, of course, also all of the big players have, or most of the big players have their own scheduling system built in, but they will always build it just for themselves. So Facebook has a possibility to schedule posts, but only on Facebook and Instagram. Everybody has just for their own network, while us being a unifier and helping you manage all of your social presence from one unified space, we always knew that there will be a need for that, and the big players will never build that. It's more about competitors that we also have in our space that have a similar functionality, but for that part, we just we see that the more we work, the luckier we get, the more customers we get, and so on. So we build our own flavor of what we think is needed based also on customer feedback, and it hasn't been something that kept me up at night. No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for the answer. And yeah, so what if somebody who's listening needs to find you or Social B? Where is the best place to do that?
Yeah, so basically, as I said, we're now socialb.com. So they should just visit us on socialb.com. And me personally, they can always reach out to me. I'm Ovi at socialb.com, or also on social media, of course. I'm, as I said, quite responsive. So please feel free to reach out. I love talking to fellow entrepreneurs and to other people in this space. I'm always happy to even jump on a call or to share ideas. So please do reach out.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the conversation. It's been great.
Thank you too. It was great as well.
Thank you. Take care.